Hello, fellows. I'm with you to felicitate and also commemorate Syed Day. And I couldn't resist recording this session, not just to share the jubilation, the excitement, the kind of pride that all the Algerians, they happen to share and rejoice. And it's no wonder that this day calls for an extravaganza, sort of wild festivities, and not only indulging in all sorts of educational activities to mark the anniversary of this great legendary savior of the Muslim community in India and the whole world at large, because there couldn't be anyone else who could have such a transformative, revolutionary changes in the lives of the people. It's rightly said, as is given in this slide, जलाकर अपने आशियाने को बख्श गए रोशनी ज़माने को. This guy nearly extinguished himself, and he not only lit a flame as a beacon for the prosperity of the impoverished Indian Muslim masses at the time when India was under complete political turmoil, and there were all sorts of upheavals going on because of the 1857 revolt, in which the Sepoy Mutiny was termed, the Sepoy Mutiny, in which the entire nation, was on the brink of being either branded as in the charge of treason, or they were going to be, punished with more draconian laws. And it's no wonder that Syed Ahmad Khan, he could visualize the predicament, the despicable, the abject poverty that the Muslim Ummah, was afflicted with. So he thought of a sort of amelioration, a sort of reformative steps, because he was a visionary at par, and he could clearly see it, a deep insightful acumen that told him that if it didn't bring about an effective reformative awakening and the kind of far-reaching changes in the psyche, in the mental makeup, in the the whole gamut of the outlook of the Indian Muslim masses, which were hell-bent upon going for only an orthodox style of living, and they were already subservient to the British rule. And as a minority community, they were further burdened with the affliction of being rated as a second-class citizen in their own country. So Syed Ahmad Khan was not a par-nationalist, and he didn't want religion and nationalism to be mixed up, because he knew that religion and the fiqh and all that couldn't take the ummah too far, and a time would come when they will be left behind, lagging in all sorts of economic, social, and political fronts. So he paved the way. He in fact chartered a complete mind map first. I mean, and then he started executioning those plans to the best of his abilities. Although if you look into his past, he didn't live a very assured kind of financial backup from his family, because his father, I think he left when he was just in his 20s, and he had to struggle to come to terms of the British era punitive and subjugation sort of ruling, and he could see that. Although he was appointed as a clerk in the British era, and he was, a kind of sympathizer, supporter of the British administration, but he didn't shy away or fall short of criticizing the British government openly and outspokenly in the 1857 mutiny. In his gazette, he openly, squarely blamed the British evil administration or faulty or dysfunctional administration to have triggered off this kind of mutiny and resentment among the common masses who were up in arms against overthrowing the British rule. Although the Sepoy Mutiny was crushed at the very inception and it couldn't conflagrate with all over India, and that's how we missed the the first opportunity that struck of attaining independence. So since then, he could see that unless there were modifications, a reviewing of this, outlook in the Muslim community and India as at large, because he never saw Indian Muslims and Hindus as separate entities. In fact, he was the one who said that they're like two eyes of a beautiful person or woman, and one eye, if we would crush or blind, the other one will look ugly. So he wanted to take along both the communities together, and he never thought of religion coming in the way of the progressive outlook that he had. In the centenary celebration, Modi, our prime minister, happened to visit, and he was the firm opinion, believe that in fact, Aligarh Muslim University, with its humble beginning from Oriental Madrasa and turning into mega institution, college, and then turn into an university, and it's like almost more than 100 years. So he happened to remark quite pertinently and befittingly that Aligarh Muslim University is a mini India. Emphasizing on the fact that the diversity, the kind of inclusiveness, the kind of wider spectrum, and the open door policy for admissions and the nurturing of prosperity of all the students and who come and attain the education, regardless of the caste, color, creed, or financial status. So this Aligarh Muslim University really offers a macrocosm of this huge nation that India stands for. And I could witness that there have been celebrations all over the world and all around. I mean, I'm based in Saudi Arabia, and I could see that not only in Saudi Arabia, but also adjoining countries in the Gulf region. There have been celebrations, and there have been, in unison, all Aligarhians have joined hands, and they not only commemorate, but also take a pledge to forwarding this kind of, cherished values that Sayyid Khan enlived and left for all of us to carry forward. You could see in this slide, this is something happening right now, right away in Kuwait, and you could even join. This is the link that's happening right away. While I'm talking to you, it's happening. So, in fact, Sayyid Ahmad had already prophesied about a day when he said that science will be in our right hand and philosophy in our left, and our head shall be the crown of there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is messenger. So he's a firm believer, a practitioner of Islamic sect. At the same time, he was a foreseer, a kind of revolutionary, a kind of reformist, a legendary person who could see far beyond what was in the offing. And much before he established Madrasatul Ulum in 1875 with 17 students, it graduated to MAO College in 1877. Sir Syed had founded the Scientific Society in 1864 at Ghazipur. That happens to be in UP, where he was posting the judicial service, the British Raj. The good thing about this person was that although he started as a clerk in the British era, but he couldn't restrict himself and he didn't, fall short of any sort of expectation, and he pushed himself towards judicial services because he knew that unless he was himself empowered with some sort of, administrative acumen and administrative service, rules, he couldn't really bring out far-reaching changes in the society. So he made it a point to visit England, and he not only visited those institutions, of the world ranking, Oxford and Manchester. In fact, he dreamed of bringing those institutions to India. And in fact, he and this Syed's first biographer, G.F. Graham, observed, and that's really notable. For the first time in the annals of Hindustan, has a Mohammedan gentleman, a Muslim alone, and unaided. I mean, there weren't too many people to raise the funds or NGOs at the time, So single-handedly, as a master craftsman, he thought over and commenced a society in order to bring the knowledge and literature of the Western world within the reach of the immense mass of the people establishment. That means those days, there were not many printing presses, and they wouldn't have publishing houses. Urdu happened to be the lingua franca, and although there was a move of Hindi bringing to fore as a national language, that is the national language now. At that time, Urdu had predominance, and actually it swayed. It was a lingua from the masses of written or spoken or publishing houses. So his brother, he started the first printing press, and he made sure that he had the gazettes and all kinds of publications and pamphlets, because without disseminating of the information knowledge, nobody can spread the message of it would be hard to spread the message of the kind of principles the revolution would like to bring about. So when he went to England, and there's somebody accompanying him, and he was stunned by the kind of quality education, the scientific temper, the way the students were trained in England, the kind of factory system, the industrial revolution. At the time, England was a factory of like China today. Was a factory of and most of the resources plundered or pooled or forwarded to England, and there they turned them into the processed products and only to be sold to those nations where they plundered from. So their mechanization, their heavy industrialization, their kind of working culture and a higher Renaissance kind of spirited and educational standard of those time and in Cambridge, and that he left. He was amazed to see that, and he modeled, in fact, MAO College or Oxford and Cambridge, making it a residential institution. Just imagine at that time, there was no, it was inconceivable for the people to have a residential institution where students will be, housed, and they will be studying on their own, and something unheard of in the subcontinent itself. I would like to mention Dr. Syed Zahur Qasim. He's one of the greatest products of this institution. The first, and he was the one in 1981 who led a first expedition to Antarctica. In our time, AMU alumnus Khushbu Mirza is a space scientist, and she earned the nickname Moon Girl for being part of the, India's Chandrayaan, the moon mission. Noted writer and AMU Urdu Academy's former director, Dr. Rahat Abrar, celebrated the journey of a Muslim girl from a small town UP with a book called Chilman Se Chand Tak, From Veil to Men. I've just curated these two examples. There's no dearth of such examples of brilliant minds that the institutions produce. And there's so many luminaries and people of established, learned intellectuals all over the world I come across and I've heard of, and it's not just restricted to India or Gulf states. It's in every nook and corner, wherever you go. And Mr. Modi, our Prime Minister, was right when he was addressing the centennial ceremony that wherever he goes, he finds students, alumni from AMU, and he finds, he feels proud of, having to say all the successful, career-oriented people in all walks of life. It's not restricted to only, it's medicine, engineering. We have, pharmacy. We have lots and lots of new faculties being added. In fact, I feel, it's a pleasure hearing about that. There are new faculties being added. I was listening to the celebrations that's going on, and I came to know that there are so many new branches of studies like cyberspace and then data science, and there are so many new branches are being added. So the institution is bringing laurels, and it's adding to its, and it's coming out with flying colors. And because the kind of education, quality education that is imparting to thousands of impoverished, underprivileged, economically background, poor economy background, that's commendable. And although there have been ups and downs in institutional horizon, but still it's really heartening and to know that the institution has always lived up to the standard, the kind of expectation that his founding father had ever dreamt of. All his dreams are fulfilled, and in fact it's more than, he could see in the future that the institution going to grow phenomenally, but you never have thought of that this is going to come out like this. Initially, or in the early years, the kind of struggle that this is a synopsis of the kind of clarion call that he gave to the Muslim masses at the time, and I'd like to read it for you. Call me by whatever names you like. I will not ask you for my salvation. So it was never his own inner self. It was never his own, predominant personality or his own pursuits or for the kind of, applaud or, in fact, please take pity of your children. He was begging before the people to send the children for, English education, because, most of the scientific books and treatises and journals and all, they were all available in English. So unless you have make sure that you understand English, you could comprehend both those books, voluminous books, and there was no salvation. So do something for them, send them to the school, lest you should have to repent by not sending them. So he could see that, education is the panacea of all evils. So we know that ignorance leads to poverty, and poverty leads to crimes, and it's a vicious, ugly cycle. Which keeps on churning out, people of the lowest order, the criminals and all. And we can see that for the want of quality educations and career-oriented growth, the Muslim community is really lagging behind and far lagging behind compared to the other communities. So it's kind of tribute, and not only a tribute, it's kind of the only way we can really, live up to his dreams. The best way to offer the tribute as a great educational leader is like, just follow up in the footsteps, and let's grow this institution, not only because he didn't dream of only having one institution in Aligarh. In fact, he wanted similar institutions, the same line to be founded everywhere, every district, every nook and corner of India. And although, after 2 decades of his demise, the institution already established, came to be established as a university, full-fledged university, national university, and his dream came true. But what about, the institutions where, there are places where, thousands of kilometers, people are thronging to this institution. Believe me, when I was studying, I had my cherished dream to enter into this institution, and I had heard so much about this institution. This was like a dream come true. It was like a mecca, education mecca for the Muslims. Although I was unfortunate, this institution has always eluded me, despite my sincere efforts, and so is happening with my offspring. Unfortunately, they couldn't get into this premier institution, which produce lofty minded people, and I'm really associating with mostly most of the people around, those who are Algerians. And what amazes me, or actually bewilders me, I really get flabbergasted when I see the kind of loyalty, the kind of integrity, the kind of faithfulness of the alumni, all the students of the previous one, or the way they remember the institution, the kind of affiliations, the loyalty, and the, I mean, that's missing. I don't remember my institution. I don't remember my previous teachers. I probably it was just an education institution for me, and I graduated. I took the degree, and that's all for me. But what's so surprising? What is so really unusual and really typical of this institution, and that makes me sometimes really envious of that. I mean, there is something in some sort of social, cultural, not political, but the kind of entire ambience and environment and the hostel life, the kind of cheap foods, the kind of social activities, the kind of mingling of the and the kind of rigid. I mean, although I don't like such kind of rigid practices, but they have been able to maintain the rigid practices. And my colleagues and all of my colleagues at King Abdulaziz University, I mean, I'm always brushing shoulders with them, and I'm really impressed by the way they eulogize, they pay tribute, they homage to, even yesterday I could find my colleagues, one in his 60s was singing an anthem, it's not less like a national anthem, and he was so emotionally touched and moved by singing that song, of the Tarana, the Tarana of this institution. And that both of the guys, my colleagues there, they couldn't resist, indulging into that rendition. So this sort of, affiliations, and this is just a sample of the way, all over the, places in Saudi Arabia. There is a get-together to, relive nostalgic memories. In Abha, that's a small place, but most of the alumni, they make sure that they remember the cherished ideals, and you can see this image that reflects of how what sort of intense belongingness, a kind of fraternity. I mean, allied fraternity. They truly represent, and this is the latest pictures coming from celebration that went underway yesterday, and we can see this is an old celebration, but what the point I'm trying to drive home to all of you, all of us, that this is a celebration that calls for loyalty from everybody. This is from 2018. This is somewhere in the UAE, and an ex student from such as she made it a point, Arshi Khan, probably, to make it a day. So if there is there's something deeper than what our eyes meet. This is going on in Riyadh, on 17 October, and one of my close associate, and he was the one who shared this with me, and no wonder that he's called Baba Qom, in fact, because he was the one who truly represented the cultural, political, I would not say religious, but the cultural, political, and educational ethos of our country. Now, how brilliantly this institution is reflecting and emanating the kind of positive vibes throughout the world. And this man really, his struggle, incessant struggle, changed millions of lives. And I vouch for his relentless, ceaseless efforts at bringing about a deep, and very reformative, cataclysmic changes in the I'm sharing this pageantry on campus today. It was brilliant, horse riders, and they were all clad in the traditional with their, and they're all having the jubilations, and they were found to be elated. And the campus also, it's just as if it's a small paradise on earth. I mean, and no wonder that, Sasim Khan, to begin with, he was of the opinion, and he was an advocate, that as long as Muslim Ummah is ignorant, it's going to, languish in poverty. It's going not to have any sort of, parity with the majority of the, other religions and other, communities. So what I'm trying to look at this is what he said, and I'm trying to quote is, Hindus and Muslims are the two eyes of the beautiful bride. That is Hindustan. The weakness of any one of them will spoil the beauty of the bride, Dulhan. So he was right when he says that, I mean, if you mar the prospects of a majority, I mean, the second majority of the community in any nation cannot be expected to flourish. It's breathtakingly, beautifully decorated on the eve of the 2021, 17 October. And this is the kind of zeal, the kind of, flavor and enthusiasm that is emanated, reflected throughout every face. You can see the kind of, it's nothing, sort of customary, and even the structural, ambience, the kind of, impeccable scenic beauty of this place is mesmerizing, believe me, it's mesmerizing. This bob and the kind of, lush greenery, and the kind of, dust free, and I mean, I'd love to, if I had any chance of getting into the any possible way, I would still love to. I mean, still, it's an undeserved dream of, getting into this, an institution of the century, an institution of the millennium. So I mean, while leaving us, I mean, sorry to hear that. This were the last couple of words that he addressed, and he said, "Oh, my dear children, you have reached a particular stage, and remember one thing, that when I undertook the task of what? I mean, I already explained how he made it a point to educate, to bring the scientific temper, scientific education, and all kinds of trades and occupations readily available for the struggling Muslim community. There was criticism all around at the time, and there were people that were spreading canard, there were, there were fitnas, and there were muftis that they had, even issued edicts against him, because he was of the opinion that, I mean, religion and, education shouldn't be, or nationalism shouldn't be mixed. And he said that corporal punishment, like, for blasphemy, shouldn't be, and seen in the light of the Orthodox Islamic practices elsewhere. I mean, he was of the opinion that India demands or requires some sort of, sort of different treatment, or different sort of, tweaking of, that's also not permissible, but still he was of the opinion that, I mean, there were kind of Islamic tenets and were being flouted, they're being, propagated elsewhere in the Arab world or in Turkey and all that. Although there was a time when he was so frustrated that he really thought of migrating to Iran, because I mean, Muslim community, they were at loggerheads, and you had to fight back, and he was pitted against all the auditors of the time, financial crunch, people that were his adversaries, people were not listening to his, entreaties, and so, and he had to beg before the people. In fact, he had sleepless nights, and he would pace up and down, and always thought of the welfare of the Ummah, the Muslim masses, and he could see that. I mean, if nothing was done, and he left no stone unturned in turning the wheel against the the wrong time, the tide. So, finally, he left us with a message that we must, imbibe in our life. And life had become so difficult for me that I aged before my age. I mean, he has to struggle so much. Obviously, I mean, he's a, self-sacrificing, supremely self-sacrificing individual who dedicated his entire life towards the betterment, the welfare, and prosperity of the nation and Muslim community in particular. I mean, he could have lived a life of luxury because he was already placed as a judge, and he was even favored by Britishers because Britishers could see that this guy was had a foresight, insight, and he could have lived, but he was always locking horns against the Britishers, and he never cowed down, and he was not a coward at all. He had to resist the temptations of, on the one hand, being a Muslim, of the ulamas. On the other hand, he had to incur the wrath of the Britishers. So he says plainly, I lost my hair, my eyesight, but not my vision. Truly, I mean, one could age, one could, may lose his longevity, one can lose his, robustness, physical robustness. But if you could dream of, I mean, you cannot be vanquished, you cannot be defeated as long as you have the strong willpower and you have the inner urge to succeed. I built this institution for you, and I'm sure you will carry the light of the institutions far and wide till darkness disappears from all around. So the darkness, what he meant from darkness was the illiteracy, the poverty, the kind of superstitious beliefs, the kind of occulticism. Because even our Muslim, Islam cultural, they also suffer from lots of occulticism and kind of So it's no wonder that he could see that there have been problems everywhere, and unless he really to sum up, I would say that Syed Ali Khan was a multifaceted personality whose work changed the way the course of the history, in fact. And during the second half of the 9th century, the era was marked by several upheavals. The mutiny was foiled, the medieval feudal orders had collapsed, the economic system was in shambles, but still Syed Ali Khan, because of his extraordinary talent, his comprehensive knowledge, his clear vision, and his farsightedness, he could steer the country through all the upheavals, and he could show the path, the right path, although there were convergences, there were oddities, but still he emerged, and he didn't want Muslims to really, involve in the petty politics of that time. In fact, if Muslims were involved in the petty politics and the freedom struggle to the extent that because they were already starving, they were famished, and there was starvation all around. So he made it point. He started, impacting on the religion, impacting among the, forms of. It's a kind of Protestant Islam, there were kind of religious change. I would say is a kind of a new facet of Islamic fervor and the development of forms of modernity, because he wanted indigenous modernity, not the post-colonial modernity, and the world of the ulamas. So Syed Ahmed Khan was keen to have Indian, wanted every Indian to wrap around his heads the modern science. His visits to Oxford and Cambridge also brought about newer, ideas, and he wanted the institution to be on the same model, in fact. And Raj Wallace, as social reformist, his legacy remains also shrouded in the because he had conflicting views. Although the Anglo-Oriental College grew into Aligarh Muslim University, just after his 2 decades of his demise, was not based on any kind of religious principles, and his attitude towards even the Congress party, he wasn't right in a rigid or fixed. He kept shifting his stances, his concept of nationalism, his community, and his different views on girls' education. In fact, he employed reasoning everywhere. He was a great rationalist. And even for emerging issues, he always had faith and how rationalism never deserted him. Whether it was a thorny issue of blasphemy, and whether it was, he made it clear that the Quran doesn't prescribe, the kind of, corporal punishment for the offenders of, because, the law of the seditions and the Muslim Khalids, and they used to impose corporal punishment for, any sort of indulgence in any sort of, blasphemous act. And he was of opinion that since India was a country where, it wasn't a theological state, so how could those stringent Islamic law could be enforced? And it has to be, a logical rebuttal and a noisy protest. So he had to incur the, resentment and the animosity of the larger masses. But he never gave up. And he was, a kind of reformative steps he took. It's not just one or two. In fact, there was endless steps he took. Being a member of several apex bodies in the British rule, he has sometimes, occasional, altercations with the Britishers on communalism, then India as a nation, then the first citizen, then and he advocated the, ICSA age limit to be raised from 21 to 23. He was the first Mohammedan Indian to raise an issue. Not only that, he wanted this ICSA exam to be conducted in India itself. Just imagine at that time raising voices for the masses, and what kind of reaction would have gained from the Britishers. And he was the first Indian member who introduced the compulsory smallpox eradication vaccination bill, and vehemently supported Albert's bill that empowered Indian judges to hear the criminal cases filed against the British. Can you imagine? He was the one to support a bill to empower Indian judges to hear the criminal cases against the Britishers. Now, this takes a mighty heart. It takes a lot of courage. Curiously, other Indian members sided with the Anglo-Indian community, which fiercely opposed the bill. Now, he was antagonistic, and it was, a kind of really a lifelong struggle for him. So, some say he was not swayed by the pan-Islamism propagated by Jamaluddin Afghani during 1838 or 1897, or Sheikh Muhammad Abdul 1849 to 1905. In fact, he wrote and he vehemently opposed by writing several editorials in his multilingual newspaper that was called Aligarh Institute magazine. Now, having your own magazine and the publication of from the press, it took a mighty resources, mighty lot of resources. Huge resources. So the concept of Khilafat had very little relevance in the Indian context. So, and he didn't want this Khilafat movement to sow the seed of separation among Muslims and Hindus. And he knew that as long as India remained united, it's going to attain, freedom from the yoke of the Britishers one day. And he asserted the religious community living in India, they are the unified nation. And he didn't, he did make a difference between patriotism, nationalism, and citizenship, but he didn't repudiate the territorial or race-based concept. He was not of the opinion that there should be a nationalism of the kind of nationalism that we see now, raising its ugly head with the kind of trying to accord a second-rate citizenship with the other minority communities. He did make a difference between and he candidly talked about a Muslim identity that is both Indian and Islamic. It is a fine balance of, and he could really, walk the tightrope of being not only an Indian, but also a good practicing Muslim with a very strong conviction and religious, belief systems. So no doubt, nobody can agree more that ignorance is the mother of poverty, and when a nation becomes devoid of arts and learning, it invites poverty, and when poverty comes and brings out the thousands of crimes. So although our Muslim masses are still struggling and really is beset, our community is beset with thorny issues and plethora of problems, and we need to really still go a long way in realizing all the dreams that Sir Khan might have had, and partly they're being fulfilled and they are being fulfilled. But believe me, it is a long way to go, and we are at the this is the crux. We are at the juncture where Muslim community and our whole entire, it's still struggling of a different, there's a struggle of a different sort, where in fact we have to reestablish ourselves, we have to revalue, redistribute our, and realign our priorities, because once again we are pitted against some sort of, challenges, though those shouldn't be the challenges, because our constitutional statutes being cornered and being undermined in one way or the other. So so the time comes when every ummah has to resurface with dignity, and it has to realign, reinforce, think about our own basic principles and values we have to live up to, and all kinds of facilities or resources or kind of our support from the administrative or governmental support should be exhausted for the kind of brighter future, kind of prosperity that our forefathers and our they have dreamt, and the kind of so my best wishes and heartiest felicitation to all those who are commemorating this day and realizing the dreams of the greatest Messiah of the Muslim community. And I'd love to hear great things in the forthcoming centenary celebrations coming years, with more laurels and with more and more of accolades being heaped upon alumni and those who are already studying on campus, off campus, and those who are wishing to get into this premier institution, and it's going from strength to strength. Good luck to everyone, and my best wishes to all of you. Thank you so much being with me.